Welcome all. In this video tutorial, we will be learning about domain and range of function, and we'll practice some examples of finding domain and range of some common functions, and we'll also learn about types of intervals. So let's start with the domain and range of the function. I will be using the example of function that I used in the last tutorial. Okay, so if you can just quickly recall. So we considered that f of x equals x plus 2. Okay, so this was our function. And if we write our function in the form of ordered pair for first few inputs and outputs, so the first input was 1 and we got output 3, then 2 for 4, and then for 3 for 5, and so on. Okay, so this is the function in the form of ordered pair. What is domain of the function? Domain is the set of all the input values, all right? But there's one condition for which the function is defined. So if you substitute value in place of the variable, and if the function is defined, that value is acceptable in the set of domain. So in this case, f of x equals x plus 2. In place of x, we can substitute all real numbers. All right. So for this function, the domain will be, I will be writing D for the domain. Domain will be set of all real numbers. Okay, so you can substitute positive numbers, negative numbers, fractions, decimals. Okay, so you can substitute any type of number. So domain of this function will be all real numbers. Now, let's define the range. So range is the set of all outputs that we get when we substitute the input values. Okay, so when we compile all those output values in the form of a set, that's the set of range. So in this case, the range of the function will be again set of real numbers. Okay, so just a quick recall, domain, set of all input values for which the function is defined. Okay, so there's a condition. Function has to be defined uh, for that input value that we are substituting. All right. Now let's consider a few more examples for finding out domain and range of functions. So let's say that's question number one. Okay, and we have another function f of x equals x squared. Now, how would you identify the domain and range of this function? So in this case, the domain will be any real number again. Okay, so you can substitute zero, positive, negative, exponentials, any number can be substituted. So its domain will be real number. Okay, but its range will be only. Can you make a guess? Because it is a squared function, we will never get a negative output, okay? Provided that we substitute real numbers, okay, not the complex numbers. So in this case, the range will be positive real numbers. It will be real numbers, but only positive real numbers. Let's consider one more example. That's question number two, okay? And the function now is in the form of a fraction, okay? So we can call it rational functions. So it is, let's say, 1 over x plus 1. Now, in this case, if you substitute x equals minus 1, so for this one, it will be 1 over 0, and any number divided by 0 is undefined. So function is not defined at x equals minus 1. So its domain will be all real numbers. Sorry. Okay, its domain will be all real numbers except minus 1. Okay, excluding minus 1. Its range will be again all real numbers. Range will be all real numbers. So the easier way to find out domain of functions that are in the form of fraction, what you need to do, you simply need to equate its denominator to 0. Okay, so in this case, the denominator was x plus 1. So I quickly equated it to 0, and you will get the value for which the function will not be defined. All right, now let me just quickly zoom out to make more space. Now let's consider one more example for functions, for identifying the domain and range of the function. And before that, we also need to know the types of interval, all right? Because the example that I'm about to discuss has a complex domain. All right, complex means that is not as simple as the examples that we just discussed. So intervals. For the first one, we have the open interval. Okay, so what is an open interval? Open interval is represented by parentheses. Okay, let's say -1 to 10. All right. So this interval will include all values between -1 and 10, excluding -1 and 10. All right. You can also write it in this form of an inequality. So let's say you can substitute all values that are greater than -1 and that are less than 10. All right. The other type is closed interval. So in closed interval, we represent it with square brackets. So let's assume -2 to 20. You can also express this in this form. X is greater than and equal to -2, and X is less than and equal to 20. I guess you got the idea that the values written as extremes of the interval, they are included. Okay, -2 and 20, they will be included, and all the values in between. The other type is partially open and close interval. So we represent them with parentheses and square bracket. They could be of this form. Let's say -2 to 10. Okay, or they could be of this form. minus sorry -5 to, let's say, 100. All right. So these are the three different types of intervals. Let's practice one more example to find the domain and range of functions that are in the square root. Okay, so let's consider the example of that function. F of x equals square root of x squared minus 9. All right. In this case, if you will substitute the value of x, that will produce a result less than 9. In that case, we will have a negative number in the root, and negative number in the root, they are imaginary numbers. All right. So we can substitute all the values in this interval. Okay, so its domain, I'm writing its domain. So its domain will be -infinity to -3. All right. Negative infinity to -3. So you can substitute, let's say, -100, okay, -1 million. All right. And there's one more, from +3 to +infinity, and the union of these two sets. So this is the domain of this function. That's quite different and difficult, I would say, as compared to other functions. The range of this function will be, any guess? You can easily guess it now. The range of this function will be, it will produce 0. The minimum value that it can produce, the minimum positive value that it can produce is 0. And the maximum positive value will be infinity. Sorry, this. So in this video tutorial, we learned about domain and range of the function, and then we worked out some examples for finding out domain and range of some common functions, and we also learned about types of intervals. Thank you for watching. Take care.